All right, we are live. We're going to give it a few minutes before we click on over and start the program. We're going to give everybody just a few minutes to log on. We've got just loading up now, Joe, so we'll give everybody just a few minutes.
Great.
Welcome here, everybody. We've got about, we said we'd start at 5. We're going to give it to about 5:03, and then we're going to get rolling. I need to know what to push to get that PowerPoint. Screen change. Okay, just stay close. All right, everybody. I think we're ready to, well, let's give it just another minute, just as the room continues to fill up and the viewers on YouTube are starting to stream on in. Had to get my, this is the first time we're using this, folks. So understand that the scope of the audience grew exponentially, and we had to come up with a kind of a seamless way to do this. And if anybody saw Steve Colbert last night, he kind of had a blunder on national TV trying to interview Daniel Radcliffe. And just interesting to see how a national broadcast of that magnitude was facing some serious technical challenges in front of a live audience. So we hope to solve for that and keep you guys happy and get you some of the information that we're concerned about getting to you. So without further ado, I want to introduce a very good friend of mine, someone I've worked closely with for, I guess, going on 9 years now, right, Joe?
That's right.
And I've been charged, among other things, with the responsibility to liaison the relationships from Annie Mac Home Mortgage to their residential real estate referral partners. The project that we work on for Joe is called Annie Mac Works. Today's session is called The Quarantined Realtor, because we think there's some pretty fascinating best practices that are kind of emerging out of this. But before I get started in our formal presentation, I just thought that the president and CEO of Annie Mac Home Mortgage could have your ear for just a moment and share some of his insight as to what's kind of going on in the real estate and mortgage lending space right now. Joe?
Thank you very much, Russ. It's a pleasure, and thank you all for tuning in. God, it could go on for hours, but Russ usually starts kicking me under the table when I do that. So
Never.
So let me give you an overview of very quickly sort of where we're at. So you hear the word unprecedented. You've heard that more than you've heard probably your own name over the past few weeks. But really, what we're going through isn't completely unprecedented. You know, we've had instances before, whether it be the Spanish flu of 1918 or the Asian flu of 1958. We've had the SARS crisis. So it's not unprecedented to have this type of thing occur. So that means we have some history as to how economies and markets handle these types of things. So I'm going to very generically break it into 3 different baskets. There is the waterfall basket, we'll call, which is basically what started out 2 or 3 weeks ago, where everything that you could possibly imagine just falls down at once, right? Not just stock prices, but markets start to close down and people freak out, and we've seen that. We've witnessed it. You've probably witnessed it all personally, and God willing, everyone on this call is certainly healthy, has remained healthy, but we sort of got a sense of the waterfall, right? And then after that, it sort of transitions to what we call the whipsaw. And the whipsaw basically is the time period, and let's just focus on the stock market for a second, is basically the time period where you'll see large movements up and down, and that's sort of the perennial battle between fear and greed, right? You'll see people who are stepping into the market, stepping out of the market, and it could be stocks, it could be bonds, it could be corporate, it could be municipal bonds, etc. And we're kind of through that and entering what I consider to be the last part of it, which is the test, right? And so the panic is over, for sure. People are, the whipsaw has kind of gone through where people, even emotionally, they vacillate back and forth. I'm going to die. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be healthy. I'm not going to be healthy. I care about my job, and I think my job's going to be okay. And, the closer we get to the apex of this virus, the more we're going to find ourselves with deeper within the test phase of this, and the quicker we're going to exit. So how does that apply to real estate agents, right? So let's start from a mortgage perspective. As far as the origination, the selling, servicing, and securitization of mortgages, we're already pretty comfortably through the first step for sure, pretty comfortably through or almost exiting the second step. And I feel like we're in the third step. So in short, what you're going to see for the next 30 to 60 days is you're going to see less angst about mortgage and mortgage rates. You're going to see less angst, about additional products being pulled, right? Because we're getting more to a stable place, and that's certainly great for borrowers. Now, I will preface that by saying there are some products that will take some number of weeks or months to come back, but you have to make a very clear distinction here. This is not a systemic issue. This is event driven, right? Systemic issue is 2007. You've got a housing market that is unsustainable because you're lending money to borrowers with no job who are claiming they make $1 million a year, and they're taking those loans and they're securitizing them and setting them out, and home prices going up based on that. That's a systemic event, right? But then you have the event driven, which is a virus, right? We've got some history, as I said, into how markets handle that and the different phases. So from our perspective, liquidity is returning. Servicing values are still suffering. That's a longer discussion, but that should begin to return shortly as well. So as I said, you should have an expectation that the next 30 days will probably be choppy still, as we're still entering that test phase as the market gets tested here and there, both in stocks and mortgages, et cetera. But after that, we'll start to exit. We'll start to exit because even by the most dire predictions, the apex of the curve nationally should be hit in the next couple of weeks. And this isn't me, this is some of the experts that I've been following very closely. Now, granted, geographically, there may be some folks who are still suffering. I was angry, I have to tell you, Russ, I saw this yesterday, to see when the U.S. Navy ship Comfort sailed in. I'm sure many people saw that. And it was, majestically passing the Statue of Liberty, and the cameras turned around. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of people standing next to each other taking selfies. My dad used to say, "You can't fix stupid," right? So what do you do about that? I'm not sure, but within pockets, you'll still see some suffering, but nationally, we should be good. So now we get back to housing and the purchase market. So I want to be crystal clear about a couple of things. First and foremost, you've heard me say this before, probably Russ certainly has, but jobs mean more to home ownership than interest rates. So to the extent that people's jobs are, so the first thing you take away from that is interest rates really don't really matter. Payment matters, right? So don't worry about trying to time it thinking rates are going to be better in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks than they are now. If you have a client, they can afford the payment, they're happy with the house, you run with it. And why do you do that? Because you still have an environment where even with increased unemployment, inventory is still very much an issue. Even again, by the dourest predictions, I saw an economic prediction the other day by a firm called Goldman Sachs. They usually have a pretty good economics team. They believe that second quarter GDP will be down by 34%, and third quarter GDP will be up by 19%. And then we should be probably flat to up by the end of the year. So what that tells you is that we're either going to have a V-shaped recovery or a U-shaped recovery. By the end of this summer, once the flu has passed, or at least the decline is continuous, you're going to see people go out and buy. You're still going to have the same pressures on inventory. You're still going to have the same demographics moving in that direction. So don't give up on 2020 in terms of it being a good year. I would bifurcate it. Your first quarter was probably pretty good. Certainly most people had a much warmer, I don't know where you're located, you had a much warmer winter. Sales were robust. I'd say the second quarter you should just assume is going to be sort of a rough and tumble quarter with beginning a return of the third quarter. By the fourth quarter and first quarter of next year, there is a possibility to make up much of what was lost during the second quarter and the first half of the third quarter. in both retail sales, in both mortgage space for sure, and clearly that bleeds directly into the real estate space because, as you know, Annie Mac, majority of its business is purchase business. So, Russ, I'm very sorry for being so long-winded, but there's a lot to unpack there.
Lot to unpack, and the depth of knowledge is what we're here for. So we've got some real estate specific things to talk about with them. But one question I have, and I'm experiencing this firsthand, how do you explain the disconnect between customer expectation about interest rates today versus what's really going on in the interest rate market right now today?
Sure. So, it really comes down to, let me put it like this. So the average person during the course of their lifetime has about 11 mortgage transactions, right? And within those 11 mortgage transactions, about 5 to 7 of them actually deal with one house to another house or a second house or a retirement home, right? So let's just round it off to 5, right? The best way you should sell, or at least, well, my belief is that the best salespeople are educators and not transaction-based salespeople, right? They're not just looking to close that loan, they're looking to educate. So now you're getting to a point of education, right? So for the average person that sits in front of their TV and doesn't understand, and they hear that the Fed cut rates to 0%, they might really think, well, wow, I can get a mortgage for 0%. And that is clearly not the case. Everything is based off of different interest rates. The rate they're talking about is the shortest term interest rate, which is really the overnight funds rate. But as you go out further along the curve, or in terms of maturity, the rates get higher and higher. But the disconnect is really education. So everything is spread off the treasury rate or off of the Fed funds rate. Now you have a situation where rates are not going as low as they could go in a few months, simply because not only do you have big pipelines across the nation in terms of mortgage lenders, meaning capacity, we are close to capacity. I believe that's a small portion of it. Owning a mortgage company, I can tell you that's it. But what you see most of the time is you see even the government agencies and liquidity in the market is not ideal. So what happens is the large agencies you may have heard of, Fannie Mae, for example, or Freddie Mac, or some of the large aggregators, people that buy large blocks of loans, they are not allowing rates to go lower simply because there's servicing risk, there's liquidity risk, there's a bunch of risks in the market that they're pricing in. So very long-winded way of saying that there's a natural disconnect that occurs between when you hear the Fed funds rate and a mortgage rate, and you have to explain to your clients, hey, listen, the Fed funds rate is designed for the largest banks to go in and borrow overnight for one night from the Federal Reserve back to the bank. So they can charge you 0%, right? Because they want to make sure the banking system, which is still very strong in America, is stable and liquid. But as you go out to a 30-year mortgage where you have risk of prepayment, you have risk of default, you're waiting 30 years for your money, that interest rate, of course, is going to be higher because the risk is higher and the time to get your money back is higher. On top of that, you have a situation where the market's still transitioning, as I said, from that whipsaw phase to that test phase. So it hasn't quite found a place to settle. And when market makers of the world don't know how to properly settle things in, they put in extra buffers to make sure that they're compensated for the risk they're taking.
Yeah.
I wish there was sort of a one-line sentence saying, hey, this is why it is. But you're talking about multiple markets. It's the homeowner, it's the mortgage originator, it's the hedging advisory firms, it's the investment banks that buy these loans. And ultimately it feathers through all the way to central banks, both here and abroad, Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, that buy our mortgage bonds. So a complicated process, but that's the best I could, as best as I could do.
Well, I appreciate it because the consumers that we're talking to have this perception that certain things are happening, but it seems like the rate market may adjust more over the next 30 to 60 days, if I'm reading you correctly.
You are. I would tell you so I'll leave you with this. So if there's one way to get money into the pockets of the average homeowner, it's not by sending them a $1,200 check. It's by refinancing their mortgage by $200, $300, $400 a month, so that savings flows through not just for that month, but in perpetuity, right? And that actually is good for homes itself, for housing itself, because it means it decreases the probability of default, which nobody wants to go through, which means neighborhoods stay stable. And if neighborhoods stay stable, then counties stay stable. And you can imagine the trickle down theory through that. So the Fed and the Treasury have every reason to try to keep mortgage rates low to refinance people, which in turn is actually really going to help the purchase market.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been suspecting down here, but I wanted to hear it from you as well. So I certainly appreciate your time putting it in on the Quarantine Realtor. This is going to be a weekly relationship we have with the Realtor Referral Partners of Annie Mac Home Mortgage. I'm going to slide into some very specific sales-oriented structural suggestions for realtors and best practices. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be on here with us and our residential real estate referral partners across the country, Joe.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. I really feel you're providing a real service, and I'm not just saying that because we're here. I mean, you cannot communicate enough during times like this, and there's also no dumb question, right? I've spoken a lot over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I can tell you that most people don't really understand. But once they get a sense of what's going on, it actually allows you to sort of get a sense of calmness. Again, we're not going through a 2007 to 2009 episode here, where it was a year, 2.5 years of just pain, right? I don't know, I'm certainly dating myself here, but I remember getting an appraisal back, and then 3 weeks later, getting an appraisal back, and it was 5–10% lower.
Yep.
We're not talking about that time. We're talking about buckling down as an industry and as a country, and really as a planet, buckling down for 30, 60 days max to get past the curve, stay smart, self-quarantine, and know that whatever you're missing now for the next 30 or 60 days is not gone forever. It just creates more pent-up demand.
Yeah.
And consider that your year should really be starting, from June to May, because you will be busy once we get this.
All right. Well, I want to thank you one more time for being on,
My
Joe.
pleasure.
You've been an inspiration and a leader for all of us. And I certainly am very sincere when I say your knowledge and your thoughtful consideration of our career paths is really appreciated.
Yep, I appreciate that as well. Great seeing you.
All right. I'm going to jump into some sales oriented conversations now. If Carrie can help me put the PowerPoint up. And Joe, one more time, thank you very much for being on. Guys, we are going to jump into the Quarantined Realtor now. Going to get into, I couldn't do it without Carrie. I want to real quick say one more thank you to Joe Panabianco, the president and CEO of Annie Mac Home Mortgage. Another person I'd like to thank is Megan Siegel. Some of you know Megan. She has been helping me all day long, and it has been absolutely the backbone of what we've been doing here and what we've been trying to put on for you. As some of you know, if you've worked with us in the past at Annie Mac Works, we don't see ourselves as a motivational speaker. We're not trying to be Tony Robbins or Zig Ziglar here. We consider our role to be one of a relationship. We are employed entirely by Annie Mac Home Mortgage to serve the residential real estate referral partners. Therefore, we see our role with you in our relationship to our realtor referral partners much more like a coach, much more like a guide. And we're going to talk about guides in just a minute. Certainly a friend. We're not here to sell you a service. We're not here to sell you a widget or some product. All I have is my best research, my 34 years going on 35, may I say, 35 years of experience in the residential real estate enterprise and the mortgage industries. And the other thing that we have for you today, and I hope this is going to be useful for you, is the collective intelligence of some of our other real estate referral partners across the country, some of the mortgage and real estate executives that I get to interact with on a regular basis. And ultimately, all of us are facing the same operating environment. So enough said on that. Today, instead of doing a bunch of rah-rah, we're going to share some best practices with you. I think some pretty fascinating best practices that you're going to notice about the COVID-19 self-quarantine reality that our real estate referral partners are in, this turbulence in the mortgage lending side of the picture, and some action steps that you can take during April of 2020 to secure for yourself the quickest possible rebound that you can plan on, or the quickest possible rebound. Like Joe said, some of the older folks online today, right? Some of us, we suffered through the 2008 crisis, and I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that my spider senses have been tingling. Okay. The anxieties swing quickly from in one 5-minute period to be daydreaming about the next big project and the next great accomplishment and the next great achievement for our organizations, to just moments later really contemplating what it would feel like if this market did another couple of dips. So I don't have the education and economic experiences that a leader like Joe Pantabianco has. So I lean on him, and I lean on other economists and other thought leaders in our space. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that, you know, the prickly hairs on the back of my neck stand up once in a while when we're talking about this collapse and this craziness that's been going on. Because if I'm guessing, when 3.5 million people file unemployment, that might have long lasting ramifications, right? I don't know. But I think that the question that I've been wrestling with, and some of the friends and family members that I've been working with or wrestling with, is something that it looks like this. Is this expected to be a very, very severe yet brief, crisis? Or is there a potential here that the lingering effects, the pebble in the pond situation growing from the unemployment and or the restaurants that are going to close down, and the food suppliers that are serving those restaurants and hotels, and could it have a pebble in the pond effect that really does have lasting dramatic things? So the question is, are we facing a V or are we facing a U, right? And if you look at that grid on the top right hand corner, I don't know. The pundits from CNN and Fox and ABC and CBS may be saying a ton of different things, but as a foot on the street residential real estate professional right now today, I'm hoping for V, but I'm planning for U. And if you were my brother, if you were my sister, if you were my best friend, I would be telling you, take Joe's advice and plan for a V. Hope for a V, but maybe internally in the home front, at the home, maybe plan for the worst, right? Hope for the best. And we could probably be seeing June and July and August be the best summer we ever had in residential real estate. Let's face it. But just in case, I'm going to recommend that we plan for the U. And so what we're going to do today, and I hope that this is a important relationship moving forward. For some of you, it will be. There are other people on this line that don't have any concerns. They're blessed, they're talented, they're financially secure, they have been just immune to financial or economic crisis. But there's a percentage of the people who are on the line that I relate very closely to that are concerned, right? The National Association of Realtors fought and lobbied to have 1099 independent contractors protected by the reemployment opportunities or the unemployment opportunities that we never had been in the past. So a big applaud to the lobbyists of NAR. But I'm going to start out with a couple rules to follow during the turmoil. Mastermind Alliance for action items. Then we're going to get into some of these best practices real quick. So the first rule that I want to talk about when you're in turmoil like this is a whitewater rafting analogy that I'd like to share with you. Some of us have been smooth sailing for the past 10 years. And if you've ever been on a whitewater rafting trip in the Grand Canyon, Snake River, Colorado River, Nantahala in the Smoky Mountains, what you find is that when it's smooth like that, you're enjoying conversation, lighthearted banter, you're having a great time. And then something happens when the guide sees white water in front of you, in front of that vessel. When your guide, who's responsible for your safety, sees that white water, his demeanor changes, doesn't it? The guide says to you, paddle now, row hard now. And the reason that the guide says that is because, and the reason that his intensity elevates is because if you he has a stewardship with you. He's responsible for your safety, and he needs to get aggressive and explain that you need to put your oar in the water and start rowing right this minute, or we could capsize, we could get wrecked on a rock, we could get stuck, we could spin out of control, and you could flip out, and you could literally be facing some life-risking situation. So when you hear your guide say, paddle, paddle, row hard now, what he's saying is it's time to go to work. We're in this white water right now. We're in a lot of turbulence. And if I'm assessing anything about this opportunity in the spring of 2020, those of us who go to work right now, and I've been there, baby, we're going to be soliciting sellers. We're going to be working with buyers. We're going to go back to some of our old leads. We're going to be doing different work on social media. We're going to be creating special offers and unique selling propositions out to the public at large. We're going to get back to farming basics, absentee owners, sales funnel work, predictive data analytics is a whole new game in 2020. But the first lesson or the first rule is paddle now, put your oar in the water, and start to row, right? The second lesson I want to address is this concept of skill set. I saw my buddy Chuck Tagano was online today. Welcome here from up by Tom's River in New Jersey. And I said, if Chuck and I were having a cocktail, and I said, hey, can you get in that plane right there and fly us to Los Angeles? And Chuck said, I don't know if I could do that. I'm not sure that I have the skill set for that. Well, there's about a 0.5% of humans that live on the earth that know exactly how to fly that commercial airline, don't they? They could take off, fly comfortably and land. They even know how to avoid turbulence, adjust their speed to get to the airport at the right time. And that 0.5% of people, they know what they're doing. So rule number 2 for dealing with this crisis is you've got to know what you're doing. And there's a very old cliche quote by Abraham Lincoln that says, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. And as cliche as that is, I want to say this, and this is to the 2 million residential real estate agents in America. Most of the ones that I observe don't spend a lot of time sharpening their axe. If I'm being honest, observing residential real estate behavior for 34 years, many of them don't have the skills that they need to get going when the going gets tough. I hope you understand what I'm saying. We're going to give you a couple more examples on that. But if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe, get to know what you're doing. So if someone asked you to fly a commercial aircraft, could you do it? Probably 99.5% of us would have to say no to that one. But let's look at this question. If someone asked you to contact old leads from 2019 for an extra 2 transactions a month, would you know how to do that? How would you contact them? What would you say to them? How would you introduce yourself to them to get 2 extra deals a month? So let's say your brokerage, your own database has 1,500 leads, 5,000 leads from 2019. Do you know how to go back in and mine that database to get yourself an extra deal or 2 a month? If someone asked you to farm a subdivision, to take on an area of specialization, and to make sure that you did $3 million out of that farm area this year, That's $60,000 to $90,000 in income, depending on the listing side commission. And you could close that this year. If someone asked you to do that, could you do that? And many of you are online right now saying, Russ, that's what I do for a living. That's exactly what I do for a living. I know exactly how to do that. But others of you are saying, no, I don't know how to do that, right? If somebody asked you, this is vital because I've been a real estate broker managing hundreds and hundreds of realtors. Now I'm managing tens of thousands of realtors across the country in this network. And sometimes I shudder when I hear how a seller inquiry is handled. Do you know what I mean? Like the seller calls, it's inbound call from a seller. They've never met that seller before. And I can see the realtor whiff. I can see him whiff. And I'm not talking about a fastball down the middle, major league speed. I'm talking about an underhand softball pitch and the realtor just whiffs on it. You could see it happen. And it breaks my heart because that's $10, $12, $15, $20,000 that could have went into that realtor's pocket. So the question is, if somebody asks you if you can convert an inbound seller inquiry that you've never met before, would you know how to navigate and nurture that relationship? And again, I respectfully honor the talented realtors who are on today who say, yeah, Russ, that's what I do for a living every day. I'm a professional realtor. I close 35, 40 closings a year. Of course, I know how to nurture a seller to the MLS listing. If somebody asks you how to mine your database, and there's some big words in this one, stick with me at the bottom of your screen, to mine your database using predictive online behavioral analytics. So you have a database and you go after that database. Do you know how to use predictive behavioral data analytics to kind of comprehend what the consumer is doing, to identify the 3 or 4 or 5% of the people in that database that are getting ready to buy or sell a house? One more thoughtful question, I hope. If someone asked you from where you sit today, and respect the people who are already there, but this is for the people who are facing a challenge. This is for people who are wondering what's next in the crisis. To take your business from where it is today to 3 closings a month, every month, so that every month you were having 3 $9,000 commission checks deposited into the gross commission income account, that's $27,000 a month or $324,000 a year. If somebody said to you, could you fly that commercial jet? No. Could you get from where you're at now to 3 closings a month every month? You have to ask yourself, do you have that skill set? Or do you know somebody who does? We're going to see. What about 5 closings per month every month? 5 closings that average $9,000 GCI, $45,000 a month in gross commission income. Do you have that skill set? Well, I have had that skill set for 25 of the 34 years that I've been in this business. And I'm here to say that it's as simple to someone who already does it as flying that commercial airline is to a well-trained pilot, right? So what you have to ask yourself is, do you believe that there's someone who knows how to do that? And could they teach you how to do that? Do you, and this is off the cuff, do you think that it's the same skill set, particularly to sell 4 to 6 homes a year as it is to sell 4 to 6 homes a month? Do you think that those skill sets are the same? That would be like asking a commercial fisherman to compare his daily routine to that of a tourist in Isla Morada on a Saturday 4-hour fishing trip. They don't intersect. There's no similarity to the skill sets whatsoever. So having said that, the first 2 rules are row hard now. That means go to work. The ugliest 4-letter word in the real estate dictionary is work. So we're going to use one rule, row hard now and work. The second rule is know what you're doing. So what we're going to be doing together in April of 2020, should you elect to participate with us, is we're going to be soliciting. Now, we're not going to be making any cold calls, okay? No cold calling. We're going to be soliciting buyers and sellers in April of 2020. We're going to be doing it together. We're going to be identifying and serving consumers that wish to list and or buy. Some of them want to list and then buy, right? Some of them want to list and just sell. Some want to list and buy, and others just want to buy. But we're going to be identifying and serving these consumers together during the April of 2020 inside of our self-quarantine realities, okay? And we're going to be especially time blocking more than ever with husbands at home, with their families, with wives, single mothers, with mothers nurturing their 3 children in the home with no school. Time blocking is more important than ever. And that means that mom's got to say to dad that I need these 2 hours once a day from 10 to noon to do the work that's necessary to build our future income for 2020. Dad has to say to mom, I have to have these 2 hours. The kids have to be put on online school or whatever it's going to take to honor your profession and do the work that we're going to need to do together. We're going to focus on 4 channels. We're going to focus on 4 channels together. I promise you, no cold calling, and we're going to be able to work from home. The first channel we're going to work on is absentee owners, database mining, subdivision farming, and third is seasoned leads, my new personal favorite. I used to believe that year-old leads were a waste of time. I'm going to show you why they're not. I used to believe that database mining was for people that had rich friends. I never even understood what database mining as a blue-collar cold call cowboy that got me into the real estate business to begin. Absentee owners, subdivision farming. So I'm going to go through these 4 and then we're going to wrap up for tonight. What we're going to be doing together is we're going to be finding owners that own their home, own their townhome or condo, or even own multifamily units that they don't live in. These are a special breed of investors. Maybe they inherited the home. Potentially they bought it for becoming a landlord, or they own this property through some other process, but they don't live in it. Well, as some of you know, we have a 20-year-old proven program to list absentee owners, and we're going to be doing that together. Unlike coming to a course and then going back off and doing it, in these Mastermind Alliance relationships that we're going to build, we're actually going to be doing the work together, okay? If you're willing, I'm willing. We may have some time on our hands. We may need to time block, but I'm willing. The reason I want to focus on absentee owners is because they're easier to list. They're easier to service than any other sources. And I've done for sale by owners, expireds, cold calling. I've done farming. I've done every aspect of the residential real estate business. Most importantly, there's no live appointments. They live in Medford, New Jersey, but they own in Ocean City, Maryland. They live in Toronto, but they own in Florida. They live in Keokuk, Iowa, but they own a condo down in St. Augustine, Florida. There's no live listing appointments. You get to stay at home. Many of these absentee owners, and I hope you hear this, they've experienced a decade of meteoric appreciation. Some of them have been in those residences for 8, 10, 12, 14 years, and they've gotten to ride the appreciation for that entire time. And some of them, a percentage of them, I'm going to say a large percentage of them, maybe as many as a third of those absentee owners, might be wondering during an election year with a COVID crisis and this turmoil that they might be fearing uncertain market conditions in the future. Well, if you want to capitalize on opportunity, I'm going to suggest if you matched meteoric appreciation with a potential turmoil and you said, hey, how'd you like to capitalize on the highest equity position that you've ever had in this house? And how'd you like to do that in May, June, and July of 2020 before the election and before major interest rate changes happen? We're going to give you a step-by-step proven system. I can promise you, baby. I just sat with a realtor in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and explained this to them specifically because I've taken 600 listings if I've taken one, okay? And that's not a joke. Connect on social media is a new way to connect with these absentee owners. Like and comment on their posts. You're going to find out exactly what to send to them. A personal note. It's the most effective mechanism. I've done them all, baby. I've done big postcards, little postcards. I've done glossy postcards, black and white postcards, letter templates. The best one is a personal handwritten note. We're going to tell you exactly what to write, how to send it. Then we're going to tell you how to answer the phone. Gosh, it matters how to answer the phone. We're going to teach you what questions to ask to gain positive professional control early in the relationship. And then we're going to teach you how to answer their questions. They're the same questions, the same 6 to 10 questions from every single absentee owner when they call you. You just need to know what they are. And then you're going to create a call to action. What's the next step? How can I move the puck down the ice and get this seller closer and closer and closer to making a decision to list his home with me and let me represent this seller with one of his most expensive assets that he'll ever own? And how do you close them for the listing? The next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to do 4. We're on number 2 right now, database mining using predictive online behavioral analytics. If I'm getting boring, you ain't interested in making money, because this is a money maker, guys. Reduce your marketing expenses now. If there's one thing about a crisis, cut, double down on lead gen. Find lesser expensive ways to generate leads. Well, with predictive data analytics, you're going to be able to create ready, willing, and able buyers and sellers. And I'm going to use this math that's on your screen right now as I start to wrap up my welcome here. 1,000 contacts in your database, 30 to 40 of those, national average, 3 to 4% of them are going to be moving towards a purchase in the next year. So that means in the next 6 months, about 15 or 20 of them will probably be buying or selling real estate. So in the next 60 days, 3 or maybe 5, if you're lucky, are going to be making that leap. Well, what's happening if interest rates do what Joe projects and what a lot of us are guessing is going to happen? That's going to accelerate the number of people from that database that are interested in doing something, whether they're going to refinance, they're going to buy something, buy a vacation home, invest in an investment property. When interest rates hit 3 anything, you can rest assured some people are going to come out of the woodwork, right? But how do you know which 3 to 5 people in the database are going to do something this year? Well, what if there was a proven way to know? And what if companies like Google, Amazon, Rooms to Go, what if huge companies like General Electric and Ford used predictive online behavioral analytics to decide whether they should create a relationship with you or not? Well, we're going to take the baby crib challenge. If I got one wish for tonight, it's that you take the baby crib challenge. I did it myself. I went to Google and I punched in the word baby crib, and all these ads came up. And then I clicked through. Take a moment and click through and hit proceed to check out. You don't have to buy the baby crib. We do not need a baby crib. That was going to be an April Fool's joke for today. I was going to tell you that Carrie was pregnant, but I'm 52. She's 50. We're not playing with that one. It's not even a good April Fool's joke. But the city furniture ad that came up, go ahead and click in it. Don't buy anything. Just click on it. And then when the mattress firm baby crib comes up, click on that. Just see what happens. And then without buying anything, go into Rooms to Go and look at their baby cribs for a few minutes. You know what? Go into the cart, click on the cart and put it into your cart, but don't check out. You understand the challenge? I want you to shop as if you were shopping for a baby crib. And then what's going to happen, guys? What happens next? What happens next is baby cribs are everywhere. Baby cribs are on your Facebook page. Baby cribs are on your LinkedIn page. Baby cribs are on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You're getting a book in the mail of coupons. All of a sudden, you're getting little coupon books with baby cribs in them. Why? Because the Fortune 500 caliber vendors know exactly how to analyze what you're doing online to determine if it's reasonable for them to expect that you might be buying a baby crib in the near future. So it works the exact same way in residential real estate. And I'm going to tell you about a buddy of mine named Chris Cusimano, who is a elite residential real estate professional with a large team. I'm really proud to know him. He lives in Parkland, Florida, which is 20 minutes northwest of where I'm at. And he uses a program called The Secret Weapon. It's at secretweapon.info. I'm not selling anything. I'm just telling you guys, using this database mining, predictive online behavioral data analytics it's like ninja stuff. Okay. So we're going to be talking about that. And I'm going to bring Chris in here to show you exactly the Cusimano method and what he does with his team and how he produces more than 6 closings a month. And that's a fact. I could show you on his MLS right now, his listings and his closings. It's phenomenal, even in today, right now in April 2020. We are going to talk to you about farming. If you don't have a farm area, if you don't have an area of specialization, if you don't have a little piece of real estate that you call your own, if you don't sell at least $3 million a year from your farm, we're going to talk to you about Carrie's course, Farming Fridays. A big shout out to Mike and Melissa Cancio up in Ponte Vedra. They hosted 26 realtors for 6 weeks in a row, coming back to Farming Fridays coaching program. We got glowing testimonials, and Melissa did a tremendous amount of research on that group to find out how they're progressing with that. For the rest of you, I want to expose you to subdivision farming. And as a treat, so happens, we just started a new farm area from scratch. It's called Rio Vista. It's in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we just analyzed it, took a look at it and said, let's do this just as a prototype for our agent friends and relationships. Let's show them what we do in the beginning. Let's show them what we do ongoing, and let's show them how much business comes from it. Could we do that together? Like in a real mastermind alliance where you were walking along with Carrie and I and say, oh, well, they just took a $900,000 listing. They just took another $700,000 listing. They just listed a $1.6 million house. Do you think it'll happen? Do you see any doubt in my eyes, COVID or no COVID, that with this farm that we just started called Rio Vista, that we're going to list some houses? So we started this farm. We're going to show you every step of the way during this. And the last area that I told you was my great surprise for 2020. And it took a lot of cattle prodding from Joe Panabianco to believe somehow that a database of year-old leads could produce a couple of extra closings a month. Now, this Sunday, I texted some leads that had come in August of 2019. Do the math, guys. That's a 7, 8, 9-month-old lead, right? It's dead. It was marked dead. But I texted 100 of them. And I didn't put the big Prudential Rock and the big Remax balloon and the big Caldwell Banker logo or the big Weichert logo. I didn't put any logos on it. I didn't even explain who I was in a text. I just said, are you still interested in buying a house this summer? Well, I sent out 100 of them on Sunday. Okay. And we've put 2 through the hopper from that list 100. And I'm going to show you what I did. On the black box on the bottom left-hand corner, these are our new lead statistics for our call center, our ISAs. If your numbers are better than this, I want to invite you to call me. I'm going to give you my email address first, russ@annymacworks.com, all one word. And probably foolish to do, but I'm going to give you my cell phone number. I won't answer my cell phone. I promise you that. But if you text me, I will respond. Even Joe knows I don't answer my phone. So if you text me, I promise you I'll respond. It's 954 area code. This is scary. 695-2314. Don't call Megan. Don't call Carrie. Call me. If your numbers are better than the numbers on your screen right now, I need you to call me. I will pay you to teach me how you got better than this. Because for the past 20 months, I've been taking new leads and converting them. And for the past 30 years before that, 70% to dialogue, 34% to meaningful dialogue, 19% to mortgage pre-qual, 16% get a credit pull, 11% make a mortgage application, 8% go out shopping with a realtor, and 4.4% close. That's the best we've done so far. But look at this, old leads. I hope this is relevant to you because it certainly is to me. If you want to make money in residential real estate, hopefully this is relevant. A text only? What? No calling? Just a text? And the text says, are you still interested in buying a home this summer? 26% response, 17% positive response, 15% meaningful dialogue. That means 15% of 100, 15 people were on the phone talking turkey. About 8% to mortgage pre-qualification. That means they were ready, willing, and wanted to know if they were able. We always do mortgage pre-qual first. And as a residential real estate referral partner from across the country, if you're taking buyers out without a mortgage pre-qual in 2020, 8% mortgage pre-qual, 6.5% credit pull, 5% shopping with a realtor, 2% closed and funded. Now look at this. You might go, well, 2%, that's cheesy, Russ. But these are leads we paid for last year. So now we're up to 6.5% conversion rate based on the first 4.5% and the additional 2% from the season leads. We're going to show you how to get season leads. We're going to show you how to reach out to them. Most importantly, we're going to show you how the scripts and dialogue. And if you're one of the few people online that are blowing these numbers away, dude, I'm your best friend. I will take you out to a steak dinner and I will wine you and dine you, and I will write you a check to teach me how you got better than that, because we're trying everything. We're pulling in the best advisors, the best consultants, the best trainers, the best people across the country. Now, that doesn't say that one realtor can't take and do it better than a conversion, or one mortgage professional can't do better. But with an ISA and a sales center dispersing these leads, I haven't found anybody that's doing it better than that. We're going to be focusing on those 4 channels during April. Coincidentally, the opportunity in April is that there happen to be 4 more Wednesdays. So each Wednesday in April at 5 p.m., live at 5 on the Worksaholic channel, we're going to be dissecting absentee owners, seasoned leads, subdivision farming, and last but not least, that incredible predictive behavioral analytics. What are they doing online? How is Big Brother spying on their online behavior to know how to send us, the consumer that's using a mortgage calculator, using Zillow, using Realtor.com, doing research about neighborhoods? How can we find out about them? I was pretty honest when I said I don't know if this is going to be a long-term crisis or a short-term crisis, or if the pebble in the pond is going to ripple for years to come. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen with COVID. I certainly couldn't tell you what's going to happen with the economy. But I can tell you, if you get in the boat with us and you row, 2020 is going to be better for it. If you get in the boat and row with us, it's going to be a better year because of it. I want to thank you all for attending the first session of the Quarantine Realtor. One big more thank you and appreciation to Joe Panabanco for joining us. Another thank you to Megan Siegel and Carrie Fitzpatrick, my wife, for helping put this together. I just want to say thank you again to Annie Mac Home Mortgage, all of the mortgage professionals across the country, the thousands of operation people that are, some of them working from home right now, to get this job done for you and for our consumers and our borrowers. I want to say God bless you and your family during this unprecedented crisis. Thanks again. I'll just turn off the video. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being on. What's that?